Hello gardening friends, welcome to Backyard Basics. A lot of people are growing citrus these days, and they're finding them at the nurseries in containers, and it's pretty nice to have a citrus plant in your backyard. You get the fruit, of course, from limes and grapefruits and oranges and Persian limes and a whole list of other types of citrus out there. And they're somewhat easy to grow, but they have certain needs in order to do it. If you can't supply these needs, maybe you shouldn't grow citrus. One of the basic needs is protection from the winter cold. These guys will not take deep freezes. In 1983, almost all of the citrus in the state of Texas, all the way down to the valley, were frozen to death. So you're going to need to protect them. Many folks will plant them in the ground, and if you're going to plant it in the ground, you have to have a well-draining soil. They get a disease called foot rot. And if they get in a wet soil, then they're dead. They're not going to make it. And so, of course, you really need to develop a raised bed if your soil doesn't drain well. Probably a foot deep, nice and large as you can make it, and about a foot deep. You know, when you're planting them in that well-draining soil, one of the things that you should do at first is maybe make a little berm around it, like you see right here. This nice little berm will not last all that long, maybe a couple of months, and you can focus the water in there when you water it. At first, maybe 2 to 3 waterings a week, just the first week. And in the second week, you try to get it down to 1 or 2 waterings. You don't want to overwater your citrus. And then after that, you'll begin to taper off as the plant gets established. Now, they like to feed too. They like some nitrogen in their fertilizer program. You don't need to poke holes in the ground. It doesn't really work that way. You just broadcast it on top of the soil, and it will take it into the soil nicely. At first, you don't really need to feed them because they come with fertilizer. There's fertilizer in these containers, enough to keep them going for quite some time. As a matter of fact, if you plant them in spring, the first feeding might be in May. And if you do another one of nitrogen, it could be in September. And in reality, once they are well established, you would do it 3 times a year, once in February, possibly again in May, and then again in the fall. So those are very important. Another benefit that could be added would be the use of mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza on trees and shrubs and any other plant is beneficial, and it's the same thing with the citrus. They really would benefit from this fungal organism that helps them gather nutrients from the area. When it gets to protecting them out in the cold, even though there are these special types of wraps that you could put on them and keep them a couple of degrees higher, it's really not enough. A nice mulch on the crown of it all the way up to where the graft is. If you can protect that little piece above the graft, in case it freezes back, you might get some new growth from right there. And like I said, container plants, you can see many people will buy several of them and put them in containers and maybe move them up against the wall out of that north wind. And finally, here's a good look at one. This is a grapefruit out in South Austin that has been there for many years, probably 10 years now. Look at the size of it. It's 2 stories tall. So it's made it through all of the freezes by being on that southwestern part of the house. It really does help it. And this one hasn't even really been covered except in the beginning when it hardens off. So this is a beautiful big plant. You may be able to do that in your yard too. And there are many varieties that you could pick from. Some of them are cold hardier than others, and that would be the way to determine what you're going to plant. If you're going to put them out in an open area in the wintertime, you have to protect them. That would be essential. And but the southeastern part of the house would be a very good part. So a feeding schedule of nitrogen, that's the only real fertilizer that you'd put on there, would be key to their success. Promoting new growth on there is going to promote some of those beautiful flowers that they have and a nice big crop of citrus. For Backyard Basics, I'm Dromgoole. I'll see you next time.